What if the feelings we experience arise for a reason? What if every person who enters our lives and touches our emotions plays a role we don't even suspect? Carl Gustav Jung saw love as something more than just a coincidence of two destinies. He believed that love, especially the kind that causes turmoil, pain, or obsession, is a reflection of our psyche. But not a simple reflection, but a mirror showing those sides of ourselves that we prefer not to notice, that we have suppressed, or have not yet accepted. This is how the shadow manifests, a key concept in Jungian psychology. Everything we deny in ourselves is projected onto others, and not just anyone, but specifically those who evoke strong emotions in us, awaken our fears, desire for control, or desire to escape. After all, love, which often arises suddenly, is actually a disguised opportunity. It is a call from the unconscious, a kind of inconvenient mentor, speaking not with words, but through our reactions, wounds, and recurring scenarios. When someone enters our life and touches the most painful spot, they don't destroy us. They only point to what was already inside, to what we were trying not to see. Jung argued that enlightenment comes not through contemplation of bright images, but through awareness of one's own darkness. And in the realm of love, this darkness often manifests as dependence, fear of rejection, need for approval, or attraction to emotionally unavailable people. It is no coincidence that we fall in love with those who do not reciprocate our feelings. It is no coincidence that we repeatedly find ourselves in relationships that leave us empty. There is a certain pattern behind this, and it can be broken not by searching for new love, but by deepened self-knowledge. After all, love does not solve our internal problems. It only brings them to the surface, making them visible. Imagine that every person who has left a mark on your heart is a kind of mirror, reflecting facets of your own personality. Not in a literal sense, of course, but in a metaphorical one. A person bound by coldness and unable to openly express their feelings may only be reflecting your own struggle with vulnerability and unwillingness to accept it in yourself. A domineering and controlling partner probably indicates your hidden desire to control your own emotions and experiences. Even those who seemed the epitome of perfection and then betrayed you may have come into your life to teach an important lesson. You are prone to excessive idealization, place too many expectations on others, and ultimately lose yourself in the process. You attract these people into your life not as punishment and not because of the burden of karma. Rather, they appear because they resonate with your energetic, emotional, and mental state, reflecting unresolved issues from your past. Relationships are not just an intertwining of feelings and emotions. They are a kind of stage on which your subconscious finds a voice and speaks loudly. Therefore, when a storm of turmoil in a relationship overwhelms you, don't rush to wonder why your partner acted in such a way. Ask yourself, why did I allow this to happen? What part of me was subconsciously seeking such an experience? What is this unhealed wound crying out about? Of course, looking inside yourself is no easy task. It is much easier to blame another person, labeling them a narcissist, aloof, or egoist. But as long as you seek the source of problems in the external world, you will repeatedly experience the same relationship scenario. Faces change, names change, but the storyline remains the same. After all, unhealed love will haunt you until you realize what it is trying to show you. As Jung insightfully noted, every relationship is a kind of initiation, a rite of passage. Not all people stay in our lives forever, but each of them comes with a specific purpose to teach us something. Some show us what we deserve, others, what we are willing to tolerate. Some lift us to the top, others shatter us to pieces. But even in the most excruciating pain, there is hidden wisdom. Even in chaos, you can hear the voice of the soul. And this is what most people prefer to ignore. Behind every strong attraction, behind every romantic obsession, there is an echo of our personal history, which desperately strives to be heard and understood. Sometimes we are drawn to certain people not by all-consuming love, but rather by an unconscious desire to heal our own emotional wounds, finding a reflection of our pain in another person. This is not predetermined fate, but only a ghostly image of our own shadow. Instead of looking our fears in the face, we tend to idealize and justify this person, creating a romantic image far from reality. When someone awakens the deepest fears in us, we should not run headlong. It is important to stop, listen to your feelings and sensations. Pay attention to your body's reaction. Do you feel tension, cramping, or panic? Do you constantly need reassurance and calming from this person? All of this is not about them, but about yourself. The paradox is that the deeper we know ourselves, the more the nature of the love we attract into our lives changes. It's not about better people appearing, but about our ability to stop reacting to what we previously mistook for love, but which was actually just a manifestation of internal lack. We no longer confuse strong emotions with true intimacy, control with care, or fear with desire. We learn to see the true essence of things, and above all, we find the courage within ourselves to say no, where we used to remain silent out of fear of loss. However, to achieve this, it's necessary to go through the thorny path of self-discovery. You need to muster the courage to look back at the past without taking a victim's stance, to look inside yourself without judgment, and to look to the future without illusions. True love, devoid of need and dependence, doesn't come from the outside. It's born within ourselves. Only by loving our own imperfections and broken parts will we stop looking for someone to fix us. There is a barely perceptible moment when something inside us makes a choice, not consciously but instinctively, the choice of whom we pay attention to whom we open our feelings and the doors to our inner world. And this choice is made not by our conscious self, but by that ancient part of us that stores all the old wounds, unresolved conflicts, learned beliefs, and hidden expectations that formed long before we knew what love was. The great psychologist Carl Gustav Jung once insightfully remarked, "Until the unconscious is made conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." This statement sounds like a thunderclap, because it shifts responsibility for our love wanderings to where we are least willing to look for it, into the depths of our self. Many of us tend to believe that love arises from common interests, happy coincidence, or divine will. However, we often fall victim to attraction to those who embody our own shortcomings, to those we secretly dream of becoming, or to those we subconsciously fear. We are drawn to the freedom that we do not grant ourselves, the strength that we refuse to acknowledge in ourselves, the pain of rejection that we once experienced, a wound that never fully healed. Another person appears before us as a living embodiment of an unresolved problem, as a projection of our internal conflicts. And what we hastily call love often turns out to be a complex dance of two inadequacies, attracting each other with relentless force. In this dance, every step, every gesture, every silence is permeated with a hidden, emotional subtext. You are drawn to his confidence because you are tormented by doubts, to his independence because you betray your own interests, to his detachment because in your soul lives an old story that taught you that love must be earned, not accepted as a matter of course. Some people appear in your life as if they have been waiting for this moment for an eternity. They seem to read your thoughts, awaken a storm of emotions in you, and become a vital need. But what escapes your gaze in the initial stages is that such intensity is not always true love. Often it's skillfully disguised pain, or your nervous system unerringly recognizing a familiar, albeit destructive pattern of behavior. After all, what we perceive as familiar, even if it causes suffering, feels like home to us. Deep down, you are not looking for another person, but for the emotional state that your body learned in early childhood, a state that has become your comfort zone, albeit a painful one. Observing the vicissitudes of human relationships, you begin to understand. If you have learned that love is unpredictable and chaotic, you unwittingly seek out such unstable relationships. If you are convinced that love inevitably causes pain, you subconsciously gravitate towards those who can inflict it the most. And all this happens as if against your will, not because you want it, but because that's what your personal history of experiences and traumas dictates. This is where the painstaking work on yourself begins. It's not about running from love or building emotional walls around yourself. It's important to realize which part of yourself determines the choice of partner. A sober, adult mind that knows its worth and understands what it deserves? Or is it still a wounded inner child who naively hopes for salvation, recognition, and unconditional love? When a child makes the choice, love turns into a desperate plea. When an adult chooses, love becomes a conscious decision, not a vital necessity. To achieve this maturity, it is necessary to cast aside all pretenses and look at your attachments with ruthless honesty. Acknowledge that your partner may not have been cruel, but that you yourself elevated them to a pedestal they never deserved. It is painful to admit that you idealized them, ignored the warning signs, settled for less, and mistook mere attention for deep affection. But this painful admission is liberating, because by recognizing your role in the scenario, you regain your lost power. Love ceases to be something that just happens, and instead becomes something that you create, allow, and shape. And this fundamentally changes everything: your style of communication, your boundaries, your perspective on your partner. There is no longer a need for constant validation, for someone to heal your wounds. You yourself become a reliable emotional space, and love ceases to be a roller coaster, transforming into a sturdy bridge. This does not mean that the feeling becomes less intense. On the contrary, it becomes more sincere, honest, and human, because it is born not out of fear, but out of mutual recognition. Two self-sufficient people who do not need each other to survive, but make the decision to walk through life together. And this becomes possible only when you stop loving from your pain and start living from healing. The quality of love you receive is inextricably linked to the quality of your relationship with yourself. Your boundaries, self-esteem, ability to be alone and not feel empty, all of this is reflected in how love enters your life. As Jung insightfully observed, love is not blind. It has the gift of profound revelation. It appears in your life not to fill a gaping void, but to illuminate its contours, to make it unbearably visible. Its mission is not to provide ready-made answers, but to point out the questions that you have diligently avoided for many years. It is this moment of realization that causes many to retreat, because mature love requires emotional resilience, a willingness to abandon the sweet illusion that someone from the outside can complete you. It requires leaving behind naive romanticism and accepting a deeper, sometimes painful truth. True love blossoms where the acute need for someone ends. Only when you learn to carry yourself independently, in your wholeness, can you truly open yourself to love that will become not just a repetition of a learned lesson, but an expansion of the boundaries of your existence. At times, we tend to see love as luck, a happy accident, a generous gift of fate. But Jung urges us to look beyond this attractive facade, stating with disarming directness, "The love you attract is a mirror, reflecting not what you would like to see, but who you are in the depths of your soul." And this, however poetic it may sound, causes deep anxiety. After all, if the love you attract into your life is dishonest, superficial, hurtful, or unstable, what does that say about you? not in the sense of accusation, but in the sense of awareness. No one in their right mind strives for suffering. However, many unconsciously choose precisely those people who know how to hurt them, because it is familiar, because it, however bitter it may be to admit, corresponds to the internal script that we have carried within us for years. By observing the recurring patterns in your relationships, you begin to notice echoes of past events, familiar roles played by new actors, situations that change their appearance, but invariably lead you to the same point. And it is there, in this invisible space between longing and pain, that the true root of what you attract lies hidden. You attract what you believe you deserve, even if you don't realize it. You attract the energy you radiate when you are alone with yourself. It comes from how you talk to yourself when no one is listening, from how you cope with your inner emptiness, from the degree of your self-acceptance. Another person, in essence, merely responds to the silent call that you send out into the world. That is why some people become magnets for unhealthy relationships, not because they want to, but because they don't know themselves well enough to protect themselves from what is not right for them. And here lies the key to understanding. The love you attract is a reflection of your degree of self-awareness. It's not about external attractiveness. It's not about the level of intelligence, and it's not even about kindness. It's about your emotional vibration, about what your subconscious considers permissible and normal, about the stories you carry within you, but have never spoken aloud. Love is not just a connection with another person. It is a powerful tool of revelation, an opportunity through which life demonstrates your own facets to you. Another person becomes the stage on which your old wounds are played out. That's precisely why we often love with fear, with despair, with dependency, because we love not from a state of fulfillment, but from a place of lack, from the illusory hope that someone will come and heal wounds whose names we don't even know. But love cannot heal what you are not ready to openly face. Love is not all-powerful in its capabilities. The most it can do is shake a person, point out their shortcomings, tear off the mask. From there, the person themselves decides to accept the truth as a guide to action or to turn away from it. It is widely believed that love justifies any action, that suffering is evidence of the depth of feelings, and that immoderate consumption is a sign of sincerity. However, Carl Jung held a different view. In his opinion, true love does not destroy, but unites. It does not leave behind scorched earth, but leads to the wholeness of the personality. This wholeness implies accepting not only the bright, but also the dark sides of one's nature. Jealousy, fears, the desire for control, self-doubt. After all, love brings to the surface not only the best, but also what is hidden in a person. And this is not a tragedy, but a chance. A chance to become aware of the unconscious, to turn relationships into a path of self-discovery, to use them not as a refuge, but as a school of life. But this requires courage. When a person realizes that the love they attract into their life is not an accident, but a mirror reflection of themselves, they lose the ability to blame others. It is no longer possible to close your eyes to your own shortcomings. You have to stop and look inside yourself. What part of the personality decided to stay in the shadows, where it is not noticed? What part has resigned itself to a lack of love and attention? What part has stopped believing that it deserves more? These questions are not easy, but they are necessary. After all, the answer lies not in the external world. It was never there. And until a person does this work on themselves, they will attract the same type of love over and over again. Names and faces will change, promises will sound new, but the essence will remain the same, because the script will not be rewritten. And only the person themselves can rewrite it, but not with the help of empty affirmations or superficial self-help techniques. but through a deep and honest exploration of their emotional history, their childhood, their first attachments, their beliefs about love. After all, that is where the pattern originates. And until a person returns to this source, they will play the same melody over and over again, even if they change the song. The love that a person attracts into their life is not an accident. It's a letter written by their unconscious and sent to the universe without their knowledge. Each time, entering into a relationship, a person reveals something new about themselves, something that they may not have wanted to see, something that craves love, but above all, self-love. After all, no one can give a person the love that they deny themselves. No one can respect a person if they do not put themselves first. No one can save a person from what they are not ready to let go of. Love is not magic. It is a revelation, a subtle but accurate mirror. And when a person finally learns to look in this mirror without fear, it will stop reflecting their shortcomings and begin to show their true self. There is something deeply revealing in how a person loves when they no longer strive to impress, when the game of seduction is over and only authenticity remains, genuineness, inevitability. It is in the ordinary manifestations of care and attention, when love ceases to be just an oath and becomes a daily act, that the true emotional essence of a person is revealed. As Jung insightfully noted, there is no surer way to penetrate the depths of the human soul than through the prism of their love. After all, the point is not only whom we choose to love, but also how we do it, from what motives our love comes, and what we are willing to sacrifice for it. Often people seek in love a panacea for their mental anguish, a way to escape the oppressive feeling of inner emptiness and insecurity from that relentless voice inside that tells of their imperfection. In such cases, they tend to project an idealized image onto their partner, seeing in them a savior capable of filling all the gaping holes in their soul. But as Jung warned, such a projection has nothing to do with true love. It is just a mirage, an illusory shadow, posing as a sincere feeling. After all, if we love a person not for their true essence, but for the role they are called to play in our lives, then we do not love, but simply use them. And such relationships, no matter how attractive they may seem at first glance, are inevitably doomed to disappointment. No one is able to forever carry the burden of someone else's salvation on their shoulders. Here, we encounter one of the most uncomfortable truths. The love we attract into our lives reflects not so much our conscious desires as our deep, subconscious yearnings. We attract those people who, unknowingly, perfectly match our unhealed wounds. Often, this means that we are unconsciously drawn to emotionally closed-off individuals because we ourselves have become accustomed to building protective barriers around ourselves, avoiding complete emotional intimacy. Or we fall unrequitedly in love with those who do not reciprocate our feelings because, at a deep level, we do not believe in our own worth and do not choose ourselves. Love appears as a symbolic arena where hidden desires and past traumas collide, a longing for closeness and a fear of losing control of the situation. Finding harmony with oneself transforms the way one loves. The need for constant validation of one's own importance and the desire to dominate or be dominated disappear. Such love is born from inner freedom, not from a sense of dire need. A person does not cling to their partner, does not resort to manipulation, does not demand constant proof of feelings, because they realize that love is not a power struggle, but a harmonious merging of two self-sufficient universes, not a desperate attempt to put together two broken halves. As inner work deepens, the nature of the love one attracts also changes. A person stops looking for a reflection of their own pain in distorted mirrors and begins to resonate with those who openly demonstrate their flaws without trying to hide them. This path to healing is not always straightforward. Sometimes there is an illusion of complete recovery, but the person returns to old patterns of behavior. The unconscious mind is reluctant to reveal its secrets, defending itself and putting one to the test. Each new relationship provides an opportunity to see more clearly not only what is being sought in another person, but also what one is denying oneself. There is no more dangerous connection than one based on the illusory hope that a partner will heal old wounds. This hope, however appealing it may seem, contains a poison that turns love into a heavy burden of obligation. Love born from guilt becomes not an expression of an abundance of feelings, but merely a way to survive. As Carl Jung noted, individuation is the path to wholeness, a process of reconciliation with all aspects of one's personality, both those that are proudly displayed to others and those that are carefully hidden even from oneself. Love plays a key role on this path, not as an end in itself, but as a field where unintegrated parts of the personality come to the surface. Love, like a double-edged sword, makes a person defenseless, exposing their innermost feelings and secret fears. It forces us to destroy the fortresses built around ourselves, allowing another to enter the chaotic world of our soul. It is in moments of emotional openness that unhealed wounds of the past surface, demanding attention and healing. It is no coincidence that those who avoid love affairs subconsciously fear meeting themselves, because they understand, even if they do not admit it, that true love implies demonstrating one's soul in all its naked essence, not showing an external shell, social status, or inflated ego. Therefore, a deep analysis of the love relationships we enter into becomes an act of self-knowledge, allowing us to see ourselves in a mirror of honesty and sincerity. And even if this revelation causes pain, it can free us from the shackles of delusion, opening our eyes to hidden aspects of our personality that we were not even aware of. Love confronts us with our own boundaries, contradictions, and unconscious attachments, starting a new chapter in our lives that we can write consciously and purposefully. However, there is an alternative path, the possibility of healing, breaking the vicious cycle of repeated mistakes and negative scenarios. After recognizing a destructive pattern, we can no longer close our eyes to it, pretending that nothing is happening. We gain power, even if we do not always have the courage, to choose a new path based on awareness and responsibility. It is at this moment that love ceases to be a random coincidence, turning into a conscious act of choice. We love no longer out of hunger and despair, but out of abundance and inner harmony. We choose a partner not because of a lack of something in ourselves, but out of clarity and understanding of our own needs. We no longer attract people to fill an inner void, but to share our wholeness and love. But to reach this state, it is necessary to go through the fire of purification, through the discomfort of self-analysis, through the courage to admit our mistakes and shortcomings, through the realization that we too have caused pain to others, made the wrong choices, and allowed ourselves more than we deserved. Love, like a magnet, attracts not just random encounters, but also a reflection of our own soul, speaking to us in a sacred language. It's easy to say that we deserve great, mature, and conscious love. We repeat these words like a mantra, secretly dreaming of it, visualizing its arrival, hoping for a miracle. However, psychologist Jung would ask us a question that goes deeper. Not, what kind of love do you desire, but what kind of love are you capable of withstanding? After all, attracting love is only the beginning of the journey. The real test is to hold on to it, to stand up to what it awakens in us, and not to destroy it when it touches the most hidden corners of our soul, the ones we would rather not see. What many mistakenly take for true love often turns out to be just a connection between two people who have worked hard enough on themselves to stop using each other to fill their own inner void. Sometimes the love that comes into our lives can be strong, but not at all healthy. It burns, captures us completely, makes us dependent. And although we take it as a manifestation of passion or intensity of feelings, in reality, it is just disguised pain. Jung explained that such turbulent relationships often arise from a powerful projection of the animus or anima, internal images of the male or female principle living in our psyche. When we meet a person who, we think, embodies this archetype, we feel overwhelmed, as if drawn by a magnet, as if by magic. But in reality, we see not another person, but only a part of ourselves that we have projected outward. We fall in love not with a real person, but with an image we have created. And when this image inevitably collapses, we feel devastated. Not because of the loss of another person, but because of the collapse of our own illusion. That's why it seems to us that something that belonged to us by right is being taken away from us. But the point is not that this person was really our property, but that we endowed him with an emotional role that we considered vital for ourselves. The pain is not caused by his departure, but by the encounter with what he hid in us: loneliness, fear, insecurity. Jung expressed this thought very clearly. What you do not realize becomes your destiny. In the tangled labyrinth of love relationships, our unconscious often dictates its own rules, forcing us to repeat the same scenarios over and over again. We seem to attract people whose faces change, but the wounds they inflict remain unchanged. And this will continue until we decide to look inside ourselves and understand the reasons for these recurring patterns. But when awakening comes, when the process of healing and self-knowledge begins, the love that we attract into our lives is transformed. It is no longer built on empty promises and inflated expectations. We no longer need someone to compliment us because we stop believing in our inferiority. We no longer wait for a savior because we have learned to save ourselves. This inner transformation changes the energy we radiate, and with it changes the love that comes to us. This is a love that does not need masks and games, that does not seek approval from the outside, and does not strive for control. This is a love that is simply allowed to be. However, even this healthy and balanced love may at first seem unusual and even frightening. After all, it lives not by the excitement of drama, but by silence and peace. For those who are used to chaotic relationships, the peaceful flow of such love may seem empty. Peace is mistakenly taken for boredom and maturity for insensitivity. Paradoxically, many people subconsciously sabotage such relationships, not because they don't need them, but because they don't know how to accept something that doesn't cause them anxiety, that doesn't require constant emotional vigilance. As the famous psychologist Carl Jung said, the familiar, even if it hurts, often seems safer than the unfamiliar. Therefore, inner work on yourself is not only about healing old wounds, but also about learning to accept love without fear. It is the art of seeing beauty in simplicity, finding joy in stability, and appreciating the depth of sincere feelings that do not need constant confirmation. The transformation of personality takes place before your eyes when you watch a person who has gone through the crucible of life's trials. He stops the senseless pursuit of ghostly ideals and moves away from fruitless attempts to run away from himself. His love becomes conscious, mature, based on reality, not on illusions. He accepts love in all its imperfection, seeing in this imperfection a special beauty, accessible only to those who have a deep understanding of life. This person does not seek to remake a partner to fit his standards and does not dissolve in relationships, losing his own identity. He skillfully balances between the personal I and the collective we, patiently, honestly, and with genuine humanity, building a bridge between these two entities. Having achieved this harmony, love ceases to be an obsession, transforming into a conscious decision. Every day, he makes the choice to be present, to choose the other person without forgetting himself. This choice is not dictated by the ease of the path, but by a deep understanding that true love lies in respecting the partner's freedom, not perceiving it as a threat. Such an attitude becomes possible only when a person gets rid of the fear of being rejected, of not being good enough, or of being left alone. After all, the love we attract into our lives directly reflects our relationship with ourselves. These relationships, even hidden from prying eyes, speak volumes. There are no universal recipes, clear instructions, or set deadlines for achieving this harmony. It is a deeply personal, intimate, and often solitary path. But every time we honestly look into the mirror of our soul, when we confront those aspects of ourselves that we previously suppressed, we take a step towards love born of authenticity. And then, at the most unexpected moment, a person appears who is ready not to save us, but to accompany us on this path, not as a predetermined fate, but as a fellow traveler, sharing our views and values. Even quiet and modest love, not promising riches, has an amazing power of transformation. It changes us not so much by its gifts, but by what it awakens in the depths of our soul. There comes a turning point when you realize that the people you attract into your life appear by chance. This realization does not always come softly and imperceptibly. Often, it bursts into life like a bolt from the blue, when familiar relationships crumble like houses of cards, or when the same mistakes are repeated over and over again, and you, as if enchanted, cannot break out of this vicious circle. Then the mirror finally shatters into pieces, and you begin to see the true motives of your actions. As the great psychologist Carl Jung asserted, we attract not what we crave, but what we are ourselves. And this truth, no matter how bitter it may be, invites us to look into the most painful corners of our inner world. After all, behind every unsuccessful love story, behind relationships that humiliate dignity, behind boundless dedication that leaves only emptiness, lies an unspoken story with oneself. This is the part of you that you stubbornly refuse to look at. A small child deprived of attention, a teenager who has learned to be silent for the sake of love, an adult desperately seeking approval in the eyes of others. And if this story remains misunderstood, if it slumbers in the depths of the subconscious, then it will manifest itself again and again in the people around you, especially in those to whom you are irresistibly drawn. People who arouse a storm of primal instincts in you are not always a sign of a real connection. Often, this is just a symptom of an unhealed wound that longs to be seen and healed. Jung said that relationships are a kind of scene where the soul unfolds, reflects, and knows itself. Real intimacy is impossible without clashes and confrontations, and sometimes life turns into a painful process. It is love that exposes those parts of you that you have carefully hidden and suppressed. Jealousy, insecurity, fear of loss, the need to control or be controlled. Everything that you would prefer to hide in a dark corner bursts out. And if you are not ready to face this, you will be doomed to experience it again and again. Love is not a fairy tale about a handsome prince and princess, not a fateful meeting of two perfectly matched soulmates. Love is a mirror that constantly tests you, shows who you have become, and points to the heights that you still have to conquer. It is not always pleasant and does not always give what you want. Often it brings exactly what you need. A valuable lesson, a difficult task, a quiet reminder that there is still much unknown ahead, that you need to let go of the past and accept the present. True love does not bypass your wounds. It gently touches them, but not to cause pain, but to illuminate them, with the light of healing. It is at this point, where the haze of romantic dreams dissipates, that the true story of relationships begins. This is no longer just a passion, but a union that requires maturity and awareness from both partners. In such a relationship, everyone clearly understands their role, their expectations, and their contribution. There is no longer any room for the naive expectation that a partner will fill the inner void, because everyone already feels like a whole person. Only then does love cease to be a battlefield and turns into a space for growth and mutual enrichment. This is a space where two people learn to truly see and understand each other without dissolving in the partner, but preserving their individuality. The most beautiful love isn't a hurricane of passions that sweeps everything away, but a calm and confident journey side by side, where each person supports the other without sacrificing themselves. In mature relationships, there's no longer a desperate search for a savior, because each person is their own support. There's no need for someone to confirm your worth, because you already know your value. You no longer seek a reflection of your own importance in another's gaze, because you've learned to accept and love yourself as you are. So, the next time love knocks on your door, don't rush to guess its predetermination. Ask yourself, are you ready to accept it, hold on to it, and recognize the true value of this feeling? True love isn't a random event, but the result of painstaking inner work, an honest and open construction of a relationship. And when this love grows on healthy soil, it becomes a quiet revolution, transforming not the world around you, but yourself.